Welcome to Revive Ministries Podcast. We are wrapping up the theme of processing. I spelled that wrong. Processing our pain, tribute to PTSD Month. Eric Gritchen said, "No one escapes pain, fear, and suffering. Yet from pain can come wisdom, and from fear can come courage. From suffering can come strength. If we have the virtue of resilience." The The idea is how we process the pain can shape the kind of healing we may receive or be willing to receive. Today, we have a returning guest. His name is Sebastian. He's no stranger to the podcast. Welcome, Sebastian. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Robert. Appreciate it. Always a pleasure.
I just want to say, disclaimer, 1-800-273-8255 is National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. But in July, mid-July, they're supposed to do 988. 988 is supposed to be the shortened version of this.
Nice.
Yeah,
good to know.
Yeah. It's supposed to be July 16th, I believe, or something around there. But they're launching it as the 988 number to shorten it, make it easier.
988.
Yes. So I always say people say better than me. They usually do, Sebastian. So Adam Braun said this way: true self-discovery begins where your comfort zone ends. What comes to mind? What comes to mind?
True self-discovery begins when your comfort zone ends. You know, in the line of work that I'm in, it requires a lot of deep self-awareness. So, and going along with self-discovery, but it's uncomfortable, right? I think at any moment when you're trying to do deep change, whether it be spiritual, mental, physical, whole being, right, it really is uncomfortable, right? So you think of like going through a health seminar and people asking you, all right, if you want to get fit, we got to look at what you're eating, and that's uncomfortable sometimes to figure out, oh man, I'm not eating as good as I am, or fitness regime. All right, well, are you really working out? Let's write it out, let's check it out. And it's uncomfortable, but that's where self-discovery, self-awareness, I think where growth really comes in, where that uncomfortableness, you really come face to face with the reality of yourself, of your situation. That's where growth can happen. So yeah, I love that, man. True self-discovery begins when your comfort zone ends.
I think that's also emphasized the importance of having positive support around you. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, is that little encouragement that can go a long way. You're going through it, you're in the thick of it. You don't know what's up and what's down, but, just even a friend or even someone in church setting, just saying something kind can go a long way, and that sometimes I feel can make the difference sometimes. Because there's there's a lot of bumps, and like you said, the deeper you go, it's not easy to be like, hey, you're not eating, or if you're not eating the things you should, or you're not working out the way we kind of get complacent in not only just our physical, but also in a lot of aspects in our lives. Our friendships, they're always the same. Unfortunately, as you grow older, you realize that friendships are different dynamics, and there's things change how they are. Respecting the privacy, of course, of Sebastian in your line of work, but sharing a little bit of being a pastor, ministering to those who may have lost someone, or what have you noticed? What has worked? Trauma comes in all shapes and forms, and what has been at least a way to continue the dialogue? Obviously, you're not trauma specialist, or you're not into. By the same time, we all play a part. So, what have you seen has been helpful with those that you minister to?
Yeah, man, it's a journey, right? In the line of work that we're in, it's different but similar in that you're dealing with people, right? And people are messy, people are broken. Life is hard, and everyone is going through something. So one thing that really sticks out in my line of work is that everyone has problems, right? On the outside, you can see some individuals maybe look worse off or have harder things or tougher things, and it might be so, right? They're going through more things, and but everyone in some capacity, in some way, is dealing with something in their family. And so in trying to communicate that, right, I think the first thing is just I think it's coming to the table, as the first quote was, right? That where that self-discovery is uncomfortable. So we've had to have a lot of conversations with families and just kind of helping, navigate and just define terms, understand what's going on. And then from there, figuring out, all right, what are some possible solutions? What are some approaches? What are some things we can do? And I think that helps out a lot to just come to the table and be real about what is going on, not sugarcoating it, not ignoring it, not trying to say that's not happening. So I think it's important about being real, but it's uncomfortable to do that because you have to face the reality. And some families don't want to do that. Some people don't want to face the reality because then it means that, hey, I am dealing with this. I am this, I'm that, I'm this. So I think that's one of the things that's been good. Another thing is in that same vein is community, right? And just knowing that we're all broken and we're all dealing with stuff. And so in my approach, I always try to be real and say, hey, look, I don't have it all figured out. We still have issues. I come from an imperfect family, and trying to relate in that way to show empathy, but at the same time, just to be real and say, hey, it's okay. We all have problems. And we ascribe to our faith and our faith tradition that we believe that God has the solution to our problems and that he can provide for us. And so that's some of the things that have helped there, right? Being real about it, coming to the table, dialoguing, and then from there, finding out what we can do. And at the same time, sharing my own experience and saying, hey, I know what that feels like, or I may not know everything that you're going through. I know I can try to understand by you helping me, but I am going through things as well because I am human just like you.
I just like, you're normalizing the situation. A lot of times we feel like, oh, we're so, especially in the faith-based community, you're so far gone from the path. And at the same time, when you are able to be, you put everything on the table and say, I'm not doing that great. And a lot of times that's why it's so important, the community aspect, but also how we approach those who are struggling. I love the kind of model in my line of work is the strength-based approach, the client-centered approach, that they are the ones that you're focused on. You don't focus on just a negative. We know the negative. Of course, the person dealing with the situation knows the negative. But let's look at some strengths that can actually help with what's going on right now. So there's all these avenues and modalities, but really just focusing and remembering the problem itself can be complicated, especially when it comes to trauma, as we pay tribute to this month. But also, the problem may be complex, but the reason why we do it isn't.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
So repeat that one more time. So the problem
may be complex, like the situations, the events surrounding people's lives may be complex, but why we do it is simple. That's it. Like, I feel like sometimes it's this ebb and flow. We can't just have we can have all these reasons, but it's fluff. The reason I care about these people is because they mean a lot to me. The reason why these things are uncomfortable because especially I'm not I can imagine just my father seeing me when I was really struggling, or my parents really struggling, and then they're trying to understand why this is happening to their son. There's a lot of potential. I can imagine that being discouraging. That's one perspective, but then you look at my perspective, like I feel unheard. So it's very complex. But the idea is, my parents want me to be better. They want to have a better life, and I just wanted to feel better, wanted to be. So it's all kind of, and sometimes what gets lost in all that is value. A lot of times gets lost. We say the word value, but it's not a lot of times valued. And I want to ask you, turning it back to you. Well, I know you, if you don't mind me saying, I know you lost your father. 2 years. Father's Day was just happened.
Last weekend. 2 weekends ago.
And then, you had this, the life group for a while with for people who are grieving and loss. A lot of times, trauma is surrounded by loss. Sometimes it's not even loss of a person. Sometimes it's a loss of a finance or a job or a lifestyle or a relationship. We kind of minimize that, but they're all losses in some shape or form. So, when going through that journey, I know you've been on here. What have you realized about yourself that surprised you, and what have you realized about others regarding processing all this pain? That you would like to share to those listening.
Yeah, man. I think first thing is just it's a journey. Right, and everyone's journey looks different. Everyone grieves differently. I think there's no right way of grieving. I think there is an importance in, as we talked earlier, in addressing it and working through it and having people you can talk to and share with. But in that journey itself, as you're processing, as you're sharing, as you're working through it, some people, it's quick. They can move on and they move forward, and you look at them and you're like, wow, this seems like nothing happened. Other people, you look at them and it's been years and years, and they still can't look at the picture. I mean, I know I've heard of someone that can't look at the picture of their son that passed away 50 years ago, right? Because it's still hard, right? So everyone's journey is different. But I think what's really neat is just knowing that everyone is in a journey. I think there is power in, and I saw this when we did our grief support group, in not just having someone that knows what loss is like, what grieving that is grieving, but someone that there's a powerful connection when you're able to connect with someone that has lost the same thing you've lost, right? Whether it be a parent, a sibling, a spouse, then you can really relate, right? And so we saw connections like that happen in our grief support group. And just beautiful to see, obviously we could relate in some way because we were grieving, but when you have someone that lost their husband meet someone else that has lost their husband, you can say, you get it, you understand, even deeper than anyone else in this room. So that's been awesome to see the community aspect of it, and pairing that with everyone's on a journey and everyone grieves differently. So being, I think, gracious to yourself and saying, hey, you may not feel good some days, you may not feel bad, and it's part of the journey, and it's okay if you're not crying as much 2 years later, or if you're still crying, it's part of the journey, and being gracious and merciful with yourself as you are with others. And another thing, I think, just the last part here that I've seen is just being patient with others when they come to you, because most people just don't know what to say, right? Or they'll say the wrong things, and you have to just help them in some way, and at times when it's appropriate, share with them, hey, but just take it at your own time. Don't feel forced to change or do anything or go as quicker or slower. But yeah, just knowing that people will come and try to say all kinds of things to try to comfort you. And as long as you get into the heart of it, that they love you and they're trying to comfort you, but what they're saying hurts more sometimes. But just try to figure out, okay, they don't know what to say during this time, and it's awkward. I get it. And I'm going to be patient with them. So those are, I think, some things that I've seen help out.
I remember, I was doing EMDR therapy in May, and then I finished a couple weeks ago. And one thing going through that, I just remember the idea of maintaining and growing. There's certain things in life that, is good to maintain, but I feel like sometimes it can have this harass effect. We kind of look at things nostalgic, and we kind of want to embalm it like it never ever it's gone, or and for me, I think the biggest hurdle was a lot of times with EMDR, there's this ball that goes back and forth, and you're trying to vision the trauma and how you visualize it, how you felt, and then how you feel about yourself that's negative, and how you feel right now, and what's that sensation, and I remember going through it, and hopelessness was a lot of times there. A lot of times it was, for me, remember my personality, it was never really about it was more that I couldn't make sense of it all. Like, I was so young, and that's one good thing is that you put so much burden. Like, I'm not one thing I want to share with people. I lost people in my life, but I was not prepared or equipped or trained to take care of them. And one thing that a lot of times we put on, because it's just so at that age, is you unrealistic
expectation,
or even even kind of had a burden on yourself. Like I was 19 years old when I first saw someone I know very closely complete suicide. And the thing was that because I wasn't able, or is it just because a lot of change? And these are the kind of self-discovery that was painful for me. Because you hold on to it. Like for me, the one thing that I tell people is that it may seem so far away, like you mentioned, some things are so far away, but it shapes how I interact with the world. It shapes every relationship, how I kind of judge or interpret triggering events or what people say or posturing. It all blends together. But when you're able to kind of, like you said, put everything on the table, it does provide an avenue, I feel, at least for me, my experience, for steps forward in healing. I think even in our faith, and I could say this for myself, I don't feel I ever want to maintain my faith. I want to grow my faith.
Right.
You see, maintaining has a notion that we're too scared to proceed forward, or something happens. So, Sebastian, what have been some notable elements serving in the church, firstly, that have changed how you viewed pain and healing today?
Notable elements. What do you mean by elements?
Like events in your life, or things, experiences, or what, even like just anything.
That's changed how they view pain and healing. I think going back to something I said again, I'll probably sound like a broken record, but that everyone is going through pain. I think that's been something very fascinating. Being a pastor, I'm privy to a lot of like deep, sensitive information because families open up and invite us into their homes and their stories and what's going on. And it's just crazy to see how many people are dealing with pain, right? And things that on the outer level and the surface level you would not know of. And so that's one thing that really takes home, that everyone is dealing with something. And in that, because of that, I think that's why with our faith, right, knowing that there's a higher power, that there's a higher being, that there's a God that can handle that, because all humans deal with pain and brokenness. I think it's comforting to me that know that it's not on my shoulders as a pastor to try to fix all things. And that's why we work with counselors and mental health professionals and therapists and doctors and physicians, whatever it is, the list goes on and on, to try to work as a team to help the person in a whole body way to bring healing. But yeah, I think that's one thing that I've seen, and just everyone's broken, everyone carries pain. And it's just like, I think a lot of it is just interesting to see how we respond to the pain of ourselves and the pains of others that we're experiencing and things that we're seeing of others. Are we empathetic? Are we kind of trying to gloss over it and ignore it so it doesn't damp our parade, right? I think there's a balance. I know in some classes we learned about enmeshment and differentiation of self, and understanding that when you're in a relationship or in a relational dynamic, not taking on all the feelings of the other person so that you mirrored it 100%, right? But you still want to be empathetic, but you want to be able to still be differentiated in yourself, to be your own person, and allow yourself to not be governed by the feelings of others or by what others are doing. So there's this balance that you're, I think, continually playing, that I'm noticing, right? Where I'm trying to bring joy into people's lives, but at the same time sitting in their moments of grief. And so I think that's a biblical term there, right? There's a season for everything, right? A season to cry, a season to laugh. And I think it requires wisdom to know when those seasons are in different people. And I think that's one of the most emotionally draining parts of our jobs. And I'm sure you feel that way too, that you're very in the lives of others, and so you take on a lot of the feelings, right? You're obviously trying to process it and say, okay, this is my situation, this isn't what I'm going through. But it's hard because you're being empathetic and you're there and you're feeling and you're heartbroken, or you're laughing and you're joyful. So you go from one situation, one conversation to another, and you're all over the place. And by the end of the day, you're like, man, I have felt every roller coaster of emotion you can imagine. And still haven't had time to feel my own emotional roller coaster, right? Others. So it's a very selfless job, I think, role that in any role that is based on helping others. But what really helps me in all this is just relying on God, relying on my family, on my wife, on friends to check up on me, and just really being intentional about taking time and understanding, right? Going back to that point, that I'm not the one that can fix everything. I'm someone that can help you and provide you with resources. But I do believe that I have a God on our side that can help fix these things and give us wisdom to know how to best go about it, whether it's talking with someone, finding resources, going here. And so that's kind of takes a lot of weight off my shoulders to be the end all be all, right? And just try to be more of listening and attentive and say, okay, I hear you, I listen, and you know. So yeah, those are some thoughts there.
Yeah, and I piggybacking on what you said, it's nice to feel like that there's a God that, faith-based wise, that God's there. It's not all on me. But I similarly enough, I have the same feeling, but in a different angle, and I find that interesting when you were talking. My whole thing was God doesn't change. And that for me is the most comforting thing. That actually brought me more to the faith than anything else. Because there was so much change around me, and I just wanted something not to change. And for me, that was comforting. So I feel a lot of times when, obviously Revive Ministry is not proselytized, but there's the idea of hope and how people come to it. And I find that very intriguing, because you're saying the same exact thing, but I'm saying it in a different way. It's the same thing. It's
in
just
your context.
I'm emphasizing the change, because that was, and a lot of times when you're in the pain, when you're in all of that, I love what Albert. This is a quote that just came to me these last few months. I like what he said, and it's right here on the right here. It says, "It's not that I'm so smart. It's just that I stay with the problem longer."
That's good. That's good.
It's a lot of times in like our lives, what we invest ourselves in, we just spend our time longer. I think looking back, that has been a lot of my success. Just staying with things longer. You know me for about 3 years or so, and I just stayed with things longer, and than some people would. And I feel that, and there's some wisdom in that. I'm still learning it, and just like all of us. But I feel the idea that this illustration, I feel, can be illustrated in many facets of our lives. I want to lose weight. I want to do better in my marriage. I want to do all this stuff. A lot of times it's just staying there. It's just showing up. A lot of times you're not going to get it. You're not going to get it the first time. It's not. It shouldn't be a quick fix. A lot of times it is a long journey that provides more. And I know you already said a lot of thoughts, but as we wrap up, any final thoughts you want to share with those listening as we kind of wrap up this month about?
I guess two thoughts, right? The first is just be patient with yourself in your journey. We're all going through things. It can be so easy to get on social media, to see your neighbors with the new car pulling up to the driveway, or an electric car, and you're like, I gotta pay for gas. Social media, everyone looks like they're going on vacation and they're doing this and that. But I guarantee you, if you're able to peel back the layers that we put before people, or the facade, or the masquerades, we'd see people broken like us going through things, right? Dealing with mental health issues and with depression and anxiety and questions and burdens and broken relationships and difficult working situations. So just understanding to be patient with yourself. And I think one thing that, going off of your last point here, that you were just sharing on, something that someone just shared with me, was the idea of being professional in your life, in the sense of, we were talking more about in our marriage as being professional and showing up. But he said, just like any job, right? If you want to keep the job, you got to be professional, right? If you work for Chick-fil-A, you're going to say, my pleasure. How can I help you? How can I serve you today? You're going to wear the uniform, right? You're going to be professional. You're going to show up on time. And so he applied that being professional to life outside of work, right? So your family life, be professional, show up, be there for your kids, show up for your wife, be present, not just for your family, for those around you, but for yourself, right? And so I think that's a word of encouragement for us to not be ashamed when we have to take a break. Don't be ashamed when we need to get vacation. use your 6 days, right? Use your vacation time. Get out, get away, unplug, and recharge for your own sanity, for the sanity of your family, and connect with them. Because we gotta know we're all going through something. We all are experiencing something. We all have some post-traumatic stress instance that we live through, right? Whether things that happened to us or things that we think should have happened but didn't. So we all carry some sort of trauma in that sense, and so it's good to be aware, as uncomfortable it is, to be aware of it and to journey to bring healing to it by opening up and talking about it.
I love what you said. I remember back in previous church, I remember telling my people that I was working with there, you know, don't look to the left or right in the pew. Just don't look. Just look forward. Just do. The idea of being professional. Be doing. Not just showing up. That's just, but also trying to be better, being better today, whatever that looks like. I do like that, because that fosters an environment that's safe and that's safer. That feels safer because you put the work in. You're surrounding yourself with. Encourage to surround yourself with positive people that will call you out if you need help. We'll say, Sebastian, you need to take a break, or whatever. Understand that some people need time, some people need and some people need a process. Some areas of your life you may be really wise at or might have gone through, but there's other avenues I'm not, that are weaker. So understand that people have their processing of how to, get to that point. But it's a journey, and as we're being kind,
it is.
Be kind to yourself. And I want to say to those listening, 1-800-273-8255. If you're ever feeling in crisis, please call that. Find what resources there is. I do believe they're launching 98 in July, I believe so. I don't know the exact date, but we'll share that with you.
I'm glad they're doing that.
I encourage all those listening. Thank you, Sebastian, so much for coming on.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Wrapping up this month, important month. I want to share with those listening. Remember to update with Revive Ministries through the various platforms. ReviveMinistriesFL.com is our website. Links you everywhere. This is goodbye from Revive Ministries Podcast, leaving with the last quote from Strauss. People go through so much pain trying to avoid pain.